pulled you out of the mud, and you became a cheap MILF for someone else's baby.
Only a few weeks ago, we arranged a simple gathering at our place to mark our anniversary. It was meant to be intimate, just the two of us with the kids, a handful of familiar faces, and a warm night to reflect on everything we'd created over the years. I was honestly excited about the whole thing. I'd put together a meaningful night with a nice meal and a little surprise planned. What I didn't know was that my wife had something entirely different going on behind my back. Everything started smoothly that night. We enjoyed our meal, shared a cake, and I gave her a meaningful present. She smiled and appeared happy, but there was an odd tension in the air. She looked distracted, glancing at her phone often, and stepping out of the room now and then without much explanation. I assumed she might have been arranging a surprise of her own, so I brushed off the odd behavior. I didn't want to overthink it. But then, at about 8 p.m., the doorbell rang. We hadn't invited anyone else, weren't waiting on any deliveries. I thought maybe it was just a neighbor at the wrong door. But the moment the bell rang, my wife sprang up and said, "I'll get it," with this urgency in her voice that made my stomach sink. It was like she'd been anticipating that exact moment. I got suspicious and decided to follow. The kids came along too. They're always eager to see who's at the door. She opened the door, and a man was standing there with a sleek arrangement of flowers and a chilled bottle of champagne in hand. Dressed in a collared shirt bearing a company logo, he looked like someone from a premium courier service. I didn't recognize him at first. Flashing a wide smile, he cheerfully announced, "Anniversary delivery for the celebrating couple. Congrats to you both." For a split second, I figured it was a kind gesture. Perhaps someone close to us had sent a nice touch for the occasion. I even considered that it might have been her idea, something to surprise me. But then the atmosphere turned. He placed the flowers in her hands, leaned toward her in a way that felt far too familiar, and murmured, "You look stunning tonight. Gorgeous." I was right there, witnessing the whole thing. "Hold up. Did you just call her babe?" "That's not something you say to someone's wife, especially in front of her husband and kids," I shot back immediately. "And my wife?" She turned beet red, not a shy blush. More like she'd just been caught doing something she wasn't supposed to. She laughed nervously and glanced at me, then at the kids, clearly panicking. Our daughter's eyes went wide. She definitely caught what he said. My son squinted and asked, "Did he just call Mom babe?" I stepped closer, trying not to lose my temper. What did you just say?" I asked the man, staring him down. It was like he only then realized I was standing there. Instead of apologizing, he chuckled and said, "I was just making sure I had the right address. The hot MILF at the door fits the description." And yes, he winked at her. This man actually called my wife a hot MILF in front of our children. My blood pressure hit the ceiling. My kids were standing right there, listening to some stranger talk to their mom like that. Well, at the time, I still thought he was a stranger. My daughter looked horrified. "Ooh, what the heck?" she exclaimed. My son was still just confused, probably not even sure what MILF meant. Meanwhile, my wife tried to play damage control. She snatched the champagne and said, "Thanks, that's enough." She tried to act casual, but her voice trembled. Then she practically shoved him out the door before he could open his mouth again. I stood there, frozen, torn between wanting to explode and trying to keep it together for the kids' sake. Before I could react, the guy waved and said, "Enjoy, beautiful, catch you later." Then he walked down our driveway like he'd just dropped off a pizza. I shut the door behind him, stunned. Then I turned to my wife. The kids were still watching, so I took a deep breath and said as calmly as I could, "Hey, why don't you two head into the kitchen and have some cake? We'll join you in a minute." My daughter hesitated, clearly wanting answers, but took her little brother's hand and led him away. As soon as they were out of hearing range, I looked at my wife and said, "What the heck was that?" "Do you know him?" She had her back to me, fiddling with the lock way too long, clearly stalling. "He's nobody," she said quickly. "Just some driver. Maybe he got the wrong address or got a little too flirty, that's all. Let's not make this a big thing." She tried to walk past me, but I blocked her path. "He called you babe and MILF. Random delivery guys don't say stuff like that. How would he even know you're a mom?" I kept my voice low, but it was sharp. She folded her arms and stared at the wall. "I don't know. Maybe he's just some perv," she muttered. "I didn't invite him, okay? Maybe he was just confused or messing around." But nothing about it added up. Not one bit. There was no mistaking it. He knew exactly where he was going. He said, "Happy anniversary," brought gifts suited for the occasion, and didn't act the least bit lost. If he truly didn't belong there, why refer to her as babe and comment that she matched some description? My instincts were blaring. My wife wasn't telling the truth. I kept pressing her. Why did he say, see you around like you two know each other? And why did you freeze up like you saw a ghost when you opened that door? Tears started pooling in her eyes, but at the same time, she was getting defensive. I don't control what creeps say, she snapped. I was just caught off guard, okay? Can we please drop this and go enjoy what's left of the night? At that point, my suspicions were fully awake. But I also knew that if I pushed the issue too hard, I might blow everything up in front of the kids. So I backed off, for the moment. The rest of the evening was painfully awkward. I barely said a word, and my wife put on this awkward act, trying to behave like everything was fine. I could tell she was shaken, and the kids definitely picked up on the weird vibe. We wrapped things up early. I never even touched the champagne. Something about it made me sick just looking at it. Later that night, after the kids had gone to bed, I sat down with my wife and confronted her again. I told her straight. I didn't buy her explanation. There were too many red flags. A delivery guy showing up right when we were celebrating our anniversary, with gifts that were clearly for us, saying things like babe and hot MILF. This guy either had no filter whatsoever, or there was something going on. But my wife doubled down. She said he was probably just a friendly guy, or maybe even intoxicated, and I was making a big deal out of nothing. She accused me of ruining our anniversary because I didn't trust her. Then she started crying, saying I was turning the night into a disaster by hurling accusations. It felt like I was losing my mind. I was too hurt and angry to share a bed with her that night. I ended up on the couch. The next morning, while she was still asleep, I knew I needed to get to the bottom of this. I remembered the logo on his polo. It belonged to a local courier business, so I decided to dig. I called the company pretending to ask about a misdelivered package to my address from the night before. After being transferred around a bit, I got someone who checked their logs and told me there were no scheduled deliveries to my home that day. No record of flowers or champagne. Nothing. That meant the man wasn't part of any delivery service. He wasn't at the wrong house. He brought those items intentionally, and my wife knew. She had rushed to the door before anyone else could. The moment she woke up, I hit her with everything I'd learned. I expected more lies, but she broke faster than I thought. First, she tried to say maybe it was a different company or a private messenger. But I wasn't buying it anymore, and I told her flat out. That's when she finally admitted the man was someone she worked with. She tried to play it down, said she'd asked him to drop off the gifts as a fun little surprise for our anniversary. Claimed it was supposed to be lighthearted, nothing more. I was stunned. You seriously thought having another man come to our house, call you babe and MILF in front of our kids was a cute idea? She started walking it back immediately, saying he wasn't supposed to say those things and he misunderstood what she asked him to do. But it didn't take long before the rest of the story started unraveling. I looked her straight in the eye and asked if that guy was the same person she'd been constantly texting lately. For months, I'd noticed her being overly protective of her phone. I'd foolishly assumed it was innocent, maybe even planning something sweet. Turns out it was a surprise, just not one I ever saw coming. She went completely silent, then started crying. That reaction told me everything. Eventually, she admitted it. The guy, let's call him Jason, was someone she'd grown close to at work. It started casually, then came the flirting. Over time, their connection deepened. By then, I was practically dragging the truth out of her. I asked if they were having an affair. She swore it hadn't turned physical, not yet anyway, but they'd been texting, calling, and definitely crossing emotional boundaries. She admitted it was emotional cheating, at the very least, and likely heading somewhere worse. I was crushed and furious at the same time. My hands were shaking as I asked, why on earth would you invite him to our anniversary party? Her answer made me feel sick. She wanted to see us in the same space, Jason and me. In some twisted logic, she believed that seeing us side by side might help her figure out who she really wanted. She thought that by comparing us in real time, she'd get clarity. Maybe she imagined I'd step up and prove I was the better man. Or maybe she hoped he would. I still don't know. She claimed it all stemmed from feeling disconnected, that Jason had been a breath of fresh air at work, always attentive, always charming. According to her, she needed to figure out if what she felt for him was just a fleeting fantasy or something real. And to do that, she brought him into our home, into our celebration, to size him up against me and our life together. Then came the most twisted part. She admitted that, deep down, she wanted me to notice. Her words? I thought if you saw another man showing interest in me, you'd fight for me. Maybe it would light that spark again. That floored me. My wife orchestrated a warped loyalty test in our living room, on our anniversary, using a man she'd been emotionally involved with, all to see if I'd react with jealousy, if I'd chase her like some contestant on a reality show. At that moment, something inside me broke. Not from anger, but from clarity. There was no fixing this. If she needed to manufacture drama to gauge her feelings, if she had to drag someone else into our home just to feel wanted, then whatever we had was already gone. What made it worse? She let our kids witness it. Whether she realized it or not, she let them see another man flirt with her and call her intimate names right in front of them. That crossed a line I didn't even know existed. She broke down into tears, swearing it was a mistake, that she still loved me and the children, begging me not to make any big decisions in the heat of the moment. But to me, this wasn't impulsive. It was the most rational decision I'd made in years. I looked her dead in the eye and told her I'd be filing for divorce. If Jason was everything she claimed, attentive, charming, whatever, she was free to go to him. But I wasn't staying married to someone who would so willingly humiliate me and play with my emotions for some twisted experiment. She kept pleading, insisting I was reading too much into it. That she could make it right. Make what right? I asked. You brought another man, the one you've been emotionally involved with, into our house during our anniversary and let him call you babe and MILF in front of our kids. That wasn't a mistake. That was a conscious decision, followed by another and another. That morning, I packed a small bag, got the kids ready, and drove to my brother's place. I didn't want them around the toxic energy, and I needed to think clearly. I calmly explained to them that their mother and I had a serious disagreement and needed space. I didn't say anything bad about her, but my daughter's silence told me she understood something big had happened. Later that day, she texted her mom and got a watered-down explanation. As soon as the courthouse opened that Monday, I filed for divorce. I didn't need more time to think. This wasn't an emotional outburst. It was a response to an emotional ambush I couldn't tolerate. The betrayal was deliberate, pre-planned. That's not something you move past with therapy or date nights. Since then, a handful of people have told me I was too quick, that I should have tried counseling, that I didn't give the marriage a fair shot. Even my mother, who's always adored my wife, told me she was heartbroken but urged me to think twice, reminding me that marriage includes hard seasons and that emotional mistakes can be worked through. Some mutual friends reached out too. One even said, maybe it was just a dumb prank that went sideways. And that, right there, is what really makes my blood boil. Because apparently, that's the narrative my wife has been feeding everyone. She's been telling anyone who will listen that I misread the situation, that the man at the door was just a confused delivery driver who knocked on the wrong house and maybe said something weird, and that I flew off the handle over a harmless mix-up. Now she's spinning this revisionist fairy tale, acting like the whole thing was a joke that backfired. So where does that leave me? Sitting at my brother's house with my kids, trying to hold it together and not let my emotions spill over in front of them. Meanwhile, my wife, soon-to-be ex-wife, is blowing up my phone nonstop. 1 minute, it's apologies and pleas to fix things. The next, she's accusing me of tearing our family apart. It's emotional manipulation on repeat, and I'm done entertaining it. I've stopped replying to anything not directly related to our children. I've told her clearly, if she wants to talk, she can go through my lawyer. I'm angry, I'm heartbroken, but I'm trying to stay composed for the kids. People keep asking, why not give her another chance? Here's why. She deliberately invited her affair partner to our anniversary celebration. That's not a lapse in judgment, that's a calculated, repeated choice. So no, I don't think I'm the bad guy for walking away. It's been about 2 weeks since I first shared this. And in that time, my wife has gone into full spin mode. To put it bluntly, she's lying. She's telling people that I misunderstood the whole situation. According to her, the man who came to our door was just a lost courier who accidentally delivered something to the wrong house and made an off-color joke. She's painting the picture that I overreacted to a harmless, awkward moment and decided to end the marriage without warning. I found out she was spreading this version of events when her mom called me. My former mother-in-law sounded confused and a bit angry, asking why I was tearing our family apart over what she heard was just a delivery mishap. I was stunned. Apparently, my wife has been telling everyone that this guy was looking for another address, that I misinterpreted everything, and that I stormed out over a harmless encounter. After hearing what my ex-mother-in-law said, I asked her directly what my wife had told her. That's when I learned just how far my wife had taken the lies. She told her parents, and probably plenty of others, a totally fictional version of what happened, that some delivery guy had brought a gift, initially knocked on the wrong door, and when confirming the address, made a careless, slightly flirty remark. She claimed the guy said something silly like, "Oops, sorry babe, wrong house," and that I misinterpreted it or blew it out of proportion. Conveniently, she skipped over the actual truth, that she knew this man, had invited him over, and that he blatantly referred to her as a hot MILF right in front of our children and me. I calmly told my mother-in-law the real story. I didn't sugarcoat it. The man at the door wasn't just a lost delivery worker. He was someone my wife was emotionally involved with. She had personally invited him into our home. I also made sure she knew exactly what was said in front of her grandchildren. My mother-in-law went silent. You could hear the heartbreak in her voice. She ended up apologizing on behalf of her daughter, which felt strange, like our roles had flipped. I felt for her, but at the same time I was furious that my wife had dragged her family into this web of deception. Apparently, my wife didn't stop at lying to her parents. She also tried to paint me as the unreasonable one to some of our mutual friends. A couple we've known for years invited me to meet for coffee, clearly trying to stage an intervention. They gently hinted that maybe I had overreacted and that the whole thing could have just been a failed surprise or a joke that landed poorly. She was feeding them the same nonsense, that nothing really happened. I had to correct the record, calmly but firmly. I didn't lay out every sordid detail, but I told them plainly. My wife cheated. She invited the guy to our home. There was no miscommunication, no prank, just betrayal. What's really maddening is how she's spinning the story now. She's trying to cast me as this unstable, overjealous guy who threw away our marriage over some harmless word he misheard. It's classic gaslighting, and it makes my blood boil. The difference, I have the truth. I've got solid proof of what went down. At this point, I'm not interested in convincing the world. But I am making sure those closest to us, especially our families, understand the reality, if only for the sake of our children. Speaking of the kids, they've been holding up as well as I could hope. We've done our best to shield them from the worst of it. Still, they're not oblivious. My daughter in particular sees right through her mom's cover story. In fact, my soon-to-be ex tried spinning the same delivery guy tale to the kids too. She told them that the man who showed up was just a goofy guy who got the wrong address, and that I overreacted because I wrongly assumed she knew him. Our 13-year-old daughter didn't buy a word of it. She straight up told her mom that she clearly heard what the guy said, both the babe and hot MILF comments. She even reportedly said something like, "Mom, seriously? You think I'm dumb?" Delivery guys don't call strangers that when they're lost. I wasn't there for that moment, but I found out later because my ex texted me angrily, complaining that our daughter was being disrespectful and turning against her. Gee, I wonder why. I gave my daughter a huge hug and told her I was proud of her for speaking the truth. My 10-year-old son is a little more protected from the storm. I think he was confused about what he heard that night, and we've kept things age-appropriate when talking to him. We explained that his mom did something very hurtful, and while he doesn't know the whole story, even he sensed that the guy at the door wasn't acting normal. Right now, I'm the one living at our home with the kids. My wife has temporarily moved in with a female coworker. After I filed for divorce, she left the house, and I've refused to give it up, mainly because I want stability for the children. We're currently doing an informal week-on, week-off parenting schedule until custody is sorted out legally. During her week, she stays at the house with the kids while I go stay at my brother's. It's awkward, yeah, but we're doing everything we can to maintain consistency for our children. On the legal side of things, my wife has now been served the divorce papers. Her reaction? A mix of rage and desperation. She alternates between lashing out via text, accusing me of giving up, and begging me to sit down and talk things out. I told her exactly what I felt. If you wanted to talk, the time for that was before you decided to pull that stunt on our... anniversary. I've limited communication strictly to co-parenting and legal matters. Emotionally, the past few weeks have been brutal. The anger has cooled a bit, but now I feel mostly disappointment, sorrow, and disbelief that this is where our relationship has ended. Sometimes I wonder if I acted too fast. But every time that thought creeps in, I remember that moment at the front door. Her standing beside him, watching as he said those things. I didn't imagine it. I didn't twist anything. She planned it. And the worst part is, rather than owning up to it, she's been rewriting the entire situation to make herself the victim and me the villain. That tells me everything I need to know. If she were truly sorry, she wouldn't be fabricating stories to make herself look innocent. The only thing she seems focused on is salvaging her own reputation, not making amends. So that's where things stand now. My wife's out there weaving tales about a confused guy who supposedly knocked on the wrong door, while I'm here picking up the pieces and trying to move forward. And just a few days after my last update, I actually ended up face-to-face with Jason, the man she betrayed me with. It wasn't entirely random. I had been quietly searching for some clarity. I was out with a couple of close buddies grabbing drinks at a neighborhood bar when I saw him, leaning over a pool table in the back with a few guys. Jason, the same man who had stood at my doorstep like he belonged there. My chest tightened instantly. I must have gone pale because my friends picked up on it right away. I leaned in and told them quietly, "That's the guy." One of them immediately stood like he was about to march over and start something. I waved him off. The last thing I needed was to escalate things into a public fight. Instead, I decided to confront Jason directly, but with a clear head. I wasn't going in blind. I opened the voice recorder app on my phone and hit record. Yeah, maybe I was being cautious, but after all the gaslighting and dishonesty, I wanted everything on the record. Then I walked straight toward the table. One of my friends stayed close behind me, just in case things went sideways. Jason saw me coming, and I caught that flash of recognition. His face said it all. Oh, crap. But to his credit, he didn't bolt or try to pretend he didn't know me. I approached and said, "You got a second?" "We need to talk." His friends looked alarmed, like they were expecting fists to fly, but I kept my tone steady, calm. Jason gave a quick nod and followed me to a quiet spot near the back of the bar. First thing out of his mouth was, "Look, man, I'm not looking for any trouble." I told him I wasn't either. I just wanted honesty. I looked him in the eye and said something along the lines of, "I know you didn't just show up randomly that night. My wife invited you. I'm not here to swing at you. I just want the truth." Maybe it was the alcohol, or maybe he was just tired of hiding. But Jason started talking, and when he did, he confirmed everything. The entire conversation is saved on my phone. Some highlights. He admitted that my wife specifically invited him to our anniversary gathering. She told him it was a casual, open house style party and encouraged him to drop by. So her story about a mix-up and a confused delivery, total fabrication. Jason also told me he was under the impression that I already knew about him. In his words, "She said you guys were basically done, that she was leaving soon or already had." I figured it was all out in the open, like you two had some sort of arrangement. I almost laughed from the bitterness of it. An arrangement? No. My wife had sold him the illusion of a dying marriage before she ever pulled this stunt. He went on, saying she'd told him she was planning to walk away from our relationship, that I took her for granted, that she wasn't appreciated at home. Hearing that hit me like a punch. Not just the cheating, but how she painted me as the villain to make herself feel better about it. Jason also apologized for the inappropriate comments he made in front of the kids. He said it was a dumb, spur-of-the-moment decision, and he hadn't realized they were standing right there. Then I asked him directly, "Just so I'm clear, she told you to come that night, expecting I'd be there, and said she was going to break things off with me afterwards?" His response? "Yeah. She said having me there would help her finally go through with it. She thought it'd give her the nerve. Told me you guys were basically done. I'm sorry, man." That apology came with a helpless shrug, like he had nothing else to offer. And honestly, what could he say at that point? I didn't feel like hitting him. Oddly enough, I just felt a strange mix of relief and heartbreak. The anger was still there, but now I had the truth. The pieces all fit. I thanked him for his honesty. He looked genuinely surprised by my composure. I told him, "Look, I don't respect what you did, but the truth matters, and she's the one who broke vows, not you. At least you owned up to it." Jason nodded and said he regretted how everything played out. He mentioned that he was stunned when he found out I had filed for divorce so quickly because, according to my wife, I was cold, distant, even cruel. The whole conversation lasted maybe 15 minutes. I walked back to my friends with the recorder still running. When I stopped it and played some of it for them, they were speechless. One of them gave me a hug and said, "Well, now you've got the truth, even if it hurts." I've since backed up that recording and even typed out the key parts. I sent a copy to my lawyer in case it comes up in the divorce or custody proceedings. I also shared some of it, redacting names out of respect, with my in-laws. They were heartbroken. They apologized for their daughter's actions and assured me they supported me and the kids. Thankfully, my relationship with them is still strong. They're genuinely kind people, and none of this is their fault. As for my soon-to-be ex-wife, I haven't told her about the recording yet. She's still sticking to her fairy tale version of events and won't address any specifics with me, aside from begging me to meet up and talk things through. I'm not playing that game. Right now, my energy is focused on the kids and navigating the legal process. Knowing the truth has brought a strange sense of closure, but it's also deeply painful. I look at the woman I spent 15 years building a life with, and I don't even recognize who she is anymore. She didn't just lie. She manipulated, betrayed, and then lied again to make herself look like the victim. Anytime I start to wonder if I acted too fast or let anger cloud my judgment, I go back to that moment, Jason standing there, calmly telling me she orchestrated it all. And that reminds me, none of this was in my head. She didn't just break trust, she destroyed it. And now, instead of owning her choices, she's trying to rewrite history to save face. So while she's out there spinning stories about some poor, confused delivery guy, I'm here, raising my kids, moving forward, and holding on to the only thing that matters now: the truth. The biggest challenge now is guiding my kids through all of this, especially as word of the divorce begins to spread through our community, at school, and among mutual friends. I haven't told them anything about the recording or the affair itself. That kind of information would only confuse and hurt them. I simply explained that both of their parents love them very much, but that we're no longer together because their mom did something that broke my trust. They seem to understand it on a basic level. My daughter definitely does. And my son, in his own way, picks up on more than we think. I wish I could say that things calmed down after that, but unfortunately, one last incident ended up shaking things even more. And this time, it involved the kids directly. It happened during one of my ex-wife's scheduled custody days not long ago. I wasn't there, of course, but I found out what happened when my daughter came back visibly upset and angry. According to what she told me, the three of them were at their mom's new place, a small apartment she's been renting. At some point during the evening, my ex decided it was time to clear the air with the kids, from her own twisted perspective. She sat them down and told them that I had been mean to her and that our divorce was happening because I treated her poorly. Then she told them, and I quote, "Mommy has a friend at work who's a much nicer man and just wants her to be happy." Yes, she really framed the affair that way, as if her emotional betrayal was justified because I hadn't been nice enough. She tried to sell that narrative to our 13-year-old and 10-year-old, like it was some harmless shift in relationships, painting herself as the victim and me as the cause. Unreal. My daughter wasn't having it. She shut it down immediately. She told her mom, "Stop. We already know what happened. We know that friend was the guy at the party. If you think he's so great, go be with him. But don't lie to us, and don't make Dad the bad guy. He wasn't mean to you. We were there. We saw everything." Apparently, my ex broke down crying and tried to hug her, but my daughter pulled away and said, "No, Mom, you don't get it. You didn't just hurt Dad, you hurt all of us." This is your mess. As for my son, he got so upset hearing her criticize me that he refused to talk to her. He simply said, "I want to go back to Dad's house." When she tried to convince him to stay and eat dinner, he went to his room, packed up his things, and started getting ready to leave on his own. That night, I didn't see any of my ex's messages right away. She'd sent several texts in a row saying that the kids didn't want to be there and asking if she could bring them over because they wouldn't even speak to her. They weren't calls, so I didn't notice them right away. By the time I saw her messages, the situation had already resolved, because my daughter had taken matters into her own hands and called her uncle, my brother, to pick them up. He didn't hesitate. He brought them home to me that night. When they got back, both kids were upset. I did what I could to reassure them. I told them I was sorry they had to deal with that kind of conversation, and I reminded them that both of their parents loved them. I also said that sometimes when people are ashamed of what they've done, they say things that aren't fair or true. I made sure to tell them it's okay to love their mom, and that I would always support them having a healthy relationship with her. But I also made it clear they're never obligated to accept dishonesty or mistreatment from anyone, parent or not. Since that night, neither of them has wanted to return to her place. So, for now, we've adjusted. She comes to visit them at our house under my supervision during her scheduled parenting time. The visits are short, awkward, and quiet. The kids usually find reasons to retreat to their rooms or go outside shortly after she arrives. It's obvious their view of her has changed dramatically. My ex has asked me to help mend her bond with them, but I've told her plainly that's her responsibility. I can model respect, and I have, but I won't force the kids to forget what they experienced firsthand. She tried blaming me again, accusing me of turning the children against her. The truth? She did that all by herself. I've been honest from the beginning, and even then, I've spared them from the worst of it. They piece the rest together themselves. Right now, my entire focus is on helping my kids feel secure and loved. I've gotten them into therapy so they have a space to process this, and I've started therapy myself. Something I should have done long ago. It's helping, slowly but surely. As for the marriage, it's officially over. Small update. I've now been legally divorced for about a week. It took 8 months to finalize everything, and no, I have zero second thoughts about ending it immediately. In fact, every new piece of drama just confirmed I made the right call. These days, I'm focused on being a father first. My kids and I are holding it together. The road ahead will be tough, but we're sticking together, and that's what matters most now. As for my ex, she made her decisions. I genuinely hope she finds peace, but that's no longer my concern. And for those wondering, no, she and Jason didn't end up together. From what I've heard, he backed away shortly after, saying things had gotten too complicated. So all that chaos? The deception, the lies, the damage, it was all for nothing.